Hey everyone, welcome back to Reading with Tatiana. Today I'm doing my May 2024 wrap-ups and I was able to finish 4 books this month. I still feel like I'm a bit of a reading rut. According to my Goodreads, my goal is 52 books a year, which is 1 book a week, and I'm 2 books behind. And I don't know if I'm in a reading rut now that I think about it. I think it's more because I'm just doing other things. The biggest change I've been doing is I wake up at 5:35 a.m. Tuesday, Friday to go to spin class. And I think it's eat up to my time because it makes me go to bed and try to be asleep by 11 or even 10:30. Where previously when I wasn't doing spin so early, I would stay up till 12 or 1. And usually from like 10 to 12, I would read for 2 or 3 hours. Whereas like now, like I guess I could read from 8 to 10, but I feel like my day doesn't really start winding down until like 10, to be honest, on most days. So then normally now I just go straight to bed, whereas before I had like an hour or two to read. I'll try to rearrange, but it's just so hard. I don't know. It's hard to find time. These are all excuses because they say if it's a priority, make it a priority. I guess maybe I just need to accept that reading is not a top priority like it was for me, especially as life is kind of basically back to normal. So yeah, but I'm going to still chug along. I hope I reach my goal. Maybe I'll pick shorter books because A Little Life really took up a chunk of my month last month. But no, I'm just kidding. I'm obviously just going to read what I want to read. And if I don't meet my goal, I don't meet my goal. But yeah. But having said that, the 4 books I read this month, even though there was one done, a 1 star and 1 5 star, it was still a good month because I felt like I had a good variety of books and it kind of made me enjoy reading a bit more and look for books that I truly enjoy. So the first book I read was a memoir, which is my favorite genre besides historical fiction. The book is called They Call Us Exceptional and Other Lies That Raised Us by Prachi Gupta. And I gave this a 4 out of 5. Honestly, this book, I would have given it a 5. It was just I didn't really enjoy her writing style. So this book, Prachi, basically talks about her upbringing in an Indian family in America and how her dad is not just controlling but abusive, and just her dilemma being raised Indian but also American. And one thing she talks about is how like whenever she succeeded, her father would that take that he'll be like, oh, it's because of me, it's because of her Indian values, because of her upbringing. But then if you ever fail, he will be like, oh, it's because you're too Americanized, because of your Western ways. So this book really resonated with me. My family upbringing wasn't as chaotic as hers, but or abusive, but it made me think a lot about like a lot of conflict I had growing up in an immigrant family, and just how, your parents try to impose these values from back home to you, and if you do great, then it's because of that. But if you don't do bad, then they blame it on these Western upbringings or ideals. But at the end of the day, like your parents should love you for who you are, and they should see you as an individual, not as a product of like these values that are like East versus West. So the book was just really interesting. Lots of parallels to my upbringing and my life. And as someone who I no longer have a speaking relationship with my father, I can see a lot of her struggles and her pain that I really relate to, and I just really enjoyed the context and the content of this memoir. And I honestly felt like I want to give it a 5, but honestly, this writing style wasn't that great, which is unfortunate. And I really hope that Prachi and her mom and father find some type of peace in their lives. It doesn't seem like it, but it was just a really great read. I do think if you decide to read this book, prepare to have like a palate cleanser to read right after, because the things that happen in this book are quite heavy. I feel really bad when reading it, but I feel like it's a good and important book to read. The next book I read was also a memoir, and this was set in Taiwan. It's called Two Trees Make a Forest by Jessica Lee. I gave this a 2 out of 5, unfortunately. Jessica is raised and grew up in America, and she is Taiwanese American, and she wants to go back to her roots and learn more about her family's history and where she came from. But this book honestly was a miss because I felt like I learned nothing really about her family or her ties to her that she had herself with her culture. I felt this book, and it makes sense because after I learned is, I think she is like her, I guess like her job or whatever is she's like a expert or related to like natural resources or that kind of stuff. So this book is obviously set and talks about Taiwan, but it talks a lot about like Taiwan's geography, flora and fauna, and it talks about the history of Taiwan in relation to that, like all the high mountains, the steep valleys, the beautiful flowers, the diverse biodiversity. It just was a miss because I felt like there's not a lot of like knowing about the people and family in her life, but more about the environment of Taiwan. I will have to admit though that I think this book did a good job, that it really beautifully described the natural landscape of Taiwan. And I think if you're someone that's really into reading about descriptions of nature, it was done really well. But I feel for me, I'd rather just watch like a BBC documentary, and it just missed the mark. But I did enjoy this book because even though I am from a Chinese family from Hong Kong, I don't really understand or know a lot about how Taiwan relates to China. And this book did talk about it a little bit, but it also made me Google and try to understand more about Taiwan in relation to the global scale. So that's why I gave it a 2, because it was educational and it piqued my interest. But as a book, I think to read, skip it unless you love descriptions about nature. The next book I read is my 1 star, and it's really unfortunate because this was my recommendation for my work book club, and it was a total miss. It's called Piglet by Lottie, Hazell, 1L5. I just feel so bad because I think this book had a lot of potential. Basically, we meet Piglet. She's about to get married, and she came from like a lower class economic family in Britain. That's where the book is set. She is obviously married into a wealthier family, and she feels a lot of pressure to cave into what society expects of her. She needs to be poised. She needs to like not overeat. She needs to be well presented and all that kind of stuff. And I can see how the themes there I was really interested in. That's why I read it. But the execution was really done poorly. And then also like there is something that's revealed. I'm just gonna ruin the book for you. So basically, there is something that's revealed very early on about how it's 10 days until the wedding, and her fiance reveals something, and basically she's like, oh, I don't know if I want to still get married or not. And then every chapter is a countdown, like 10 days till wedding, 9 days, 8 days, 7 days, and every chapter you're wondering if they're going to reveal what did he do that was so bad that's a betrayal to her. And that's what kept me kind of like interested to what could happen. But then the book ends and they never explicitly say what he did. It's just kind of like assume it was something that was so horrible that she couldn't go through with staying married to him. And I don't know, I just hate books like that it's like kind of open to the reader's interpretation, because I felt like you're just teasing me with this carrot. And not only did I not get it, but not that I was able to get it, but it wasn't even like a real carrot. It was just awful. And similar to the previous book I said where I talked too much about nature, this book talked a lot about food, because Piglet has this fixation on consuming and eating, especially when she's feeling anxious or stressed. So I feel like if you're someone that loves the descriptions of food, this could be for you. Could be triggering if you have an eating disorder. And definitely reading this book, it made me really crave dessert and baked goods, because they did a really good job describing this book. But this book is a 1. I honestly think it's a skip. It just really wasn't for me. I'm sorry. And the next book I read was Hotline by Dimitri, Nasrallah, and I gave this a 5 out of 5. I freaking love this book. Also a memoir, and kinda, I guess. It's not confirmed, but basically this author it's a man, Dimitri. He writes loosely about his mom's experience immigrating to Montreal in the 80s from Lebanon, and then the main character in this book is a mom who immigrates by herself to Montreal with her young son. So it's kind of like a memoir in that sense, but it's not confirmed. And this book was just really great because Muna, the mom, moves to Montreal from Lebanon, and it talks about her experience about assimilating to Montreal and Quebec. Montreal is in Canada, but for people who don't know Canada well, Montreal is Quebec. Montreal, the city in Quebec, is the province in Canada that's our French province. So it has its own subculture and can be very different. And Mina talks about her struggles, being a single mother, people being discriminatory towards her because she looks different. This is the 80s. her being like a woman and just trying to make it work because she has a young son. And this book, like it was just lots of heartwarming moments, people in her community that she meets, like her landlord or her son makes a friend at school, and that person's parents is also an immigrant family from they're Cantonese, and just seeing like these people like pull together, lots of heartwarming moments, and it's just such a great book. I really loved it, and in a way, I feel it's like a historical fiction because it's in the 1980s. It talks about these like microaggressions that happens to immigrants that nowadays definitely wouldn't fly, but back then like Muna didn't talk about it or write about it like it was racist or offensive back then because that was just the way things were. It's only me now reading it 2024 and I'm like, oh shoot, like I can't believe that happened to her. So I really liked it because she writes about it as in like it's just something that happened, and it's really up to me that interprets it as like something that was discriminatory. I really love this book. I really love it how it ended, and it was just so awesome. And that was my 5 out of 5. So I'm glad I ended my month on a high note.